The UN Security Council is holding an open debate on children and armed conflict in New York. It comes as the Secretary-General presents the UN's annual report on the subject, and some of the findings paint a pretty grim picture. In 2015, Afghanistan recorded the highest number of child deaths and injuries since the UN began documenting casualties in 2009. In Yemen, there was a five-fold increase in the number of children fighting. 6 times as many children were injured or killed. 21 girls were used as suicide bombers by Boko Haram, and hospitals and schools were attacked in 19 of the conflicts surveyed by the UN. Well, let's get more on this. I'm joined in the studio now by George Graham, who's Head of Conflict and Humanitarian Policy and Advocacy at Save the Children UK. Good to have you with us, George. I mean, in any armed conflict, we know that children are the most vulnerable. Not only are they being targeted for killings, for injuries, they're being pressed into armed conflict. What kind of trends are we seeing?
Well, exactly, and in your introduction really paints the picture very vividly. It should prick all our consciences. We've got thousands of children being killed, thousands being injured. As you say, children being raped, being recruited into armed forces, being abducted, and then hundreds of thousands of children being denied humanitarian access, and literally millions having fled for their lives. So we're seeing a picture that I don't think we've seen as bad on such a scale in my lifetime.
But of course, all these things are taking place in very, very complex conflict areas. I mean, we're talking about Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, South Sudan. Are these member states able and willing to offer more protection for children?
Well, in some ways, one of the successes of the Security Council, which, as we all know, is a body that increasingly struggles to agree on things, has been its willingness to talk seriously about how to protect children in conflict. The fact that we're having this open debate today is testimony to that. And there have been successes. On child soldiers, for example, most governments have made really substantial efforts to curtail that practice. But clearly more needs to be done. I think that just the act of having the debate, of shining a spotlight on what's happening, I think that is very helpful. I think more can be done. I think states need to support independent investigations so that we really find out what's happening. I think with visibility, that in itself curtails behaviour.
But we already have international conventions in place, international laws in place to prevent this kind of thing happening. So why are we still seeing it happening? And is there a problem with the UN itself? For example, it took the Saudi-led coalition off its list for violations committed against hospitals and schools in Yemen because of political pressure. So can the right thing be done? Or is it the whole thing a victim of political pressure?
Well, I think my answer has to be that it can be done. If we lose hope in the UN being capable of setting global standards, then frankly we've lost hope in the UN, and we've lost hope in having any sort of rules and order in this world, which we need more than ever. So I continue to be hopeful that on this agenda, because it's about children, because everybody understands that children by definition are innocent parties to conflict, that it is possible to get the right political will to uphold these standards. Yes, the process has been heavily politicised. No, that should not happen. The UN needs to be bolder. The member states themselves need to be bolder, because it's them who set the standard. And if they say, actually, we want to live in a rules-based world, then this is an easy place to start, protecting children.
Well, we hope your confidence is rightly placed, and we wait to see what happens. Thank you very much indeed for that, George Graham there.